first of all, it's an opportunity to explore some kind of difficult ideas and often dangerous ideas about loss and joy and conflict and peace and individual transformation, social transformation, the environment and caring for country. So there's those big ideas, I guess, that are part of literature. It's also, and associated with that is this idea that children's literature is also a form of socialisation too, of learning to value and believe and act in particular ways. And along with that comes the opportunity to examine that, perhaps to affirm it or to challenge it. So, that's, I think those big ideas are there, but they're also there to be explored. But other people talk about how literature enables children to have their own experiences and affirmed and identities affirmed, to see things from the perspective of others outside of their own communities and cultures. They talk about exploring those difficult topics at a safe distance. And once they're available, they can be talked, and to share those ideas about characters and happenings with others, whether that be peers, teachers, siblings, etc. And also, when children and young people are interacting with literature, they're learning how writers and artists and filmmakers go about their creative process. So with a certain intentionality, so they have an opportunity to take from that and learn with an expert teacher how to express themselves, how to use those meaning-making resources in particular ways in their own writing. I think that's, for me, is a really important part of using literature. And so there's another aspect too, and I think it's worthwhile for those of us as primary teachers to think about much literature is multi-layered, so that when children in primary schools are learning to read into text, read on a couple of layers, what they're doing is laying down skills that are going to be so important for English in the secondary years. And English is the only subject that's mandatory for all students. So they're learning what people have called the gaze of English. So that to me is also important. But there's a third reason I think that I like literature, in that because the creators have had to create a whole world, they're a really good workout for language and other sorts of meaning-making resources. So we can use them as an literary text as a vehicle for exploring grammar of all sorts, of looking at how texts are structured, we're looking at visuals, how visuals are put together. So it's at the heart of English, but we can also bring the study of language to bear and visuals to bear on literature, and we can do a lot of literacy through it too.
I like to think of literature as being as central as we can make it. It's not everything, it's not everything in the English curriculum, but we can make it central. And that, if we can make our literate text central to what we do, it gives us a thread that we can use for dealing with all of the complex elements of the English curriculum. So we can deal with vocabulary building, we can deal with spelling, we can deal with writing, we can deal with inferential comprehension, just by working deeply with a text. So I like to think that we can work with texts over a period of time and in depth, rather than sort of rushing through trying to get lots and lots of texts done, a new text every week. I like to think we can follow a text through, work with it, of course, bring in other texts as we go and see connections and talk about similarities and differences and how they relate to each other. But that depth is enabled through deep study. So we can use a text for, importantly, talking, or creating dialogue, because we talk about texts. And I think we always have to begin with the talking. That's where it starts. And then that talking we do lays the groundwork for everything else that we do in class. And then obviously we use a text, as Pauline has said, we use a text for reading and for finding out about the world and for finding out about different cultures and different people and different viewpoints, and for living other lives vicariously through these worlds that are created through literature. And then, as Pauline also said, we use the text potentially as a model for writing, because the writers have all the tricks and we learn from the tricks. Interestingly, as we know, we don't write the way we speak. We learn to write in many, many different ways through the course of schooling. And where do we get those different ways from? We don't get them from our speaking and our everyday communications. We get them from the text that we read. So literature has an enormous role there in creating the language, in providing the language that we then use as models for our students to learn.
It's fantastic that we will be joined by both Pauline and Helen, who you've had an opportunity to meet today, and hear a little bit of a taster, I guess, about what they're going to share with you throughout their presentations at the conference. But Pauline will also be joined by Carly Plummer. And Carly is a school-based head of curriculum, and she's been working on developing effective cross-curricular instructional strategies for writing. And she's also been supported by by Professor Beverly Dorowianka. And Carly will present really what she's been doing with her class and looking at a transdisciplinary unit addressing both English curriculum outcomes and environmental sustainability. So that's that really practical take through a workshop that I think you'll find really, really useful. Now, Helen's going to be taking a deep dive further into the pedagogical practices that support the reading, writing connection. And I'm sure, again, you're going to take away a lot of practical approaches to use straight away. We've also got fantastic keynote presenters, including Kath Murdoch. And I know that Kath will be known to many of you. She's an experienced teacher, writer, university lecturer, and a really popular consultant working in Australia, New Zealand, and essentially around the world. So Kath will be exploring curiosity and concepts and connections. And she'll be looking at how educators who use an inquiry-based approach are bridge builders, working hard to support children to make connections in their learning. This will be a fantastic presentation. We're really delighted to be joined by so many of our colleagues and friends and experts in Melbourne. And this year we welcome Bree Hearn to our conference. And Bree is an experienced primary teacher, literacy leader and education writer. She's a lecturer in language and literacy at the Melbourne Graduate School of Education and the course coordinator of the Master of Teaching Early Childhood and Primary at the University of Melbourne. And Bree will be talking about using literature for productive planning with the Australian curriculum. And I know that Bree is also going to be demonstrating and, I guess, unpacking the literacy progression as well. So this will be a session not to be missed. Now, in our leadership strand, we have Stephanie Zalazar. And excuse me, Stephanie is the founder and educational leadership coach from Sanctuaries of Learning. Stephanie, you might know that name. She was an award-winning classroom teacher and former assistant principal and instructional coach at a primary school in New South Wales. Stephanie will share her proven strategies in instructional coaching and literacy leadership. So lots to take away from that session. And then we have an amazing selection of authors. I'm really, really delighted to be welcoming Jasmine Seymour. And Jasmine will be talking about her books and incorporating Aboriginal language, culture, and community for contemporary times. We'll also be joined by another selection of fantastic award-winning authors. We have Alison Lester, Andrea Rowe, Alice Pung, and Cheryl Ng, and they'll be providing insight into that writing process. And you'll have plenty of opportunities to ask them questions as well. So I'm sure they're going to add a great deal to our conference. So this is just really a little bit of a sneak peek, a snapshot from our inspiring speaker program. But make sure you follow us on all the social media channels, check into our website. This year, of course, the conference will be held at the W Hotel located in Flinders Lane, right in the heart of Melbourne, best place to be. So there'll be lots to see and do outside the conference times as well. Now, make sure that you take advantage of our early bird prices. That's ending very soon. So it's really easy to just jump straight onto the PETAA website. You can register today and be all set and ready to go.